this is where I started. I'd love to finish here, and it's kind of what the goal is. I mean, goal for everybody, but this one was halfway attainable. So, yeah, and honestly, big thanks to James and them. And me and him's talked about this before, but I haven't done a thing for him. That's kind of what's cool about it to me is he just got here and he had enough faith in me to keep me around. So that means a lot.
How long have the negotiations been going on?
Too long. No, not that long. Everyone's been great to work with. Obviously, when you love a place and the place seems to love you back, it kind of goes pretty easy. But man, between this and high school recruiting, I kind of just want to play football and hunt and fish. So I don't like dealing with all that stuff,
To be like the league's highest paid punter for like 18 years.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. If someone tells you the money don't matter, they're going to. This level, you have 2 boys, an awesome wife, another boy on the way. So when you start talking about finances when it's just you, that's kind of different. But then when you have people behind you and kids that you're raising up, it does mean a lot.
How physically you feel as good as you ever have?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'll be 30 next month and still swinging it. And I feel, I'm not saying I feel like I did when I was 21, but as far as consistency and feeling very comfortable on the field, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm trying to keep that consistent feel and try to keep everything as simple as possible. And that's kind of the goal.
You talked about the faith that Liam showed in you. He kept you, Ross, and Cam, and the coordinator.
Yeah.
So, is that a recognition that phase of the team was too good to pass up or too good to break?
Yeah, I mean, I think before we even changed leadership roles, before we got James here, there was a lot of conversation had between me and people who were still here at the time that was, hey, I don't care what happens. I know there's a lot of change coming, but as long as this guy stays, that's everyone in the room wants that. And talking about Heath, and Heath, his 3 years here, he's had 3 Pro Bowlers every year. I think that's a testament to him, and obviously our scheme puts people in good positions to make plays.
Coming off a career year, where do you see some marginal improvement? Where would you like to see the next step?
Yeah, I had a game I'd love to have back last year, and I think as when you get to, I guess, a mature player in the NFL, that you can have bad plays but not bad games, and I think cutting out those bad games. There's one game in Vegas last year that just not how I punt, and it came to a point like the fourth quarter. I told Ross, I was like, dude, we got to stop punting because we need to go home, and I can't have those games, and I think my goal is just have some bad plays but keep the bad games from happening. Yeah, thank y'all.
Zach, Coach, the 3 guys. What did you see enough that made you feel like we can't break this group up?
Yeah, it was important after talking to people once I actually got the job, and then you start to watch a little bit more film on special teams and watch our specialists and how they operated. Then you obviously start talking to the people in the building, and not only about Heath and Luke, but obviously about the guys and just the professionalism, the way that they practice, the way that they go about their business, and then obviously when you turn the tape on and you see the weapons that they are as specialists, that's a part of the game that, man, when you don't have those assets, it's a difficult game at times, especially when you got to be able to flip the field and play field position, when you need to be able to get points from a longer distance. So, that was really important. It was critical to keep that continuity together, and so far I've been nothing but pleased with these guys.
Was the tempo up today? Yeah. Did you ask that of these guys? Is that your goal for OTAs, to be a little different than our minicamp than OTAs?
Yeah, we just tightened the racks down a little bit in terms of the amount of repetitions and just up the competes a little bit. I thought they did a good job today within that, still taking care of each other, practicing the right way. Yes, we upped the level of competition, but you didn't see a million people banging into each other or guys getting banged up, and it was cleaner. I was a little concerned with that, and that's obviously not what we're trying to get accomplished out of these next few days. But yeah, we were keeping score on the competition phase of it, and it was really the red zone and the third down periods we kind of kept score and just try to make it a little bit more fun for them. At the end of the day, these guys, when you have it on a script, that becomes a little monotonous for them, and so we're trying to do as much call-it periods as we can for us as coaches, but also I think the players enjoy it a little bit more for them to just go play and not be, previewing a script.
No, Pat, what do you think about the defensive line versus the offensive line?
Yeah, I thought there was a little bit more of a rush today, which was great to see from one aspect, and like I was just talking to Tony about this just now, it's actually the worst time to play offensive line because there's no surface area to touch. And as much as we'd love to not admit there's holding that does occur in a professional way, and so it's really difficult to play offensive line in these competitive situations that are primarily drop back pass situations. So really not judging them by any means, but although it was nice to see some of that juice off the edge and our D-line getting going a little bit. That was nice to see because we really haven't, not necessarily seen it, we have, but more so haven't been in those settings as much. And so it was definitely good to see. And but if I was an OL in this setting, I'd be kind of annoyed.
Speaking of offensive line, just you talked about before having competition in that room. I know it's not training camp yet, but just what have you seen from that competition within that group?
Yeah, I think it's more the competes for me have been more, okay, after we throw a pass maybe 10 yards down the field, are they bursting to go get down the field to go practice the right habits that are going to hopefully continue on through training camp, through the season, and be just like our style of play, the way that we want those guys to play. It's very difficult, like you mentioned, to see an actual physicality within either the run game or the pass pro in these settings. But I think from a repetition standpoint, when you talk about competition, that we've got a lot of guys, some quality competitive reps with both the first group, second group, and third group. And so that's been nice to have, and knowing that, okay, we're going to really hold off on the judgment specifically on the front until we get the pads on. But I think, Sean, Khalil, and Trevor, Mendelson have done a nice job coaching that group up, and those guys have taken to it. They've taken to the competition, and ultimately we'll wait to hold off on some of those judgments till we get to training camp.
Trevor had a sleeve on today. First time, I believe, in OTAs. Is there anything going on there?
No, I think he just had a little bit of just general soreness. We threw a lot of balls kind of last week and really leading up into. He feels good. He said it wasn't really an issue. It was more sometimes when you just have something to keep it warm, just helps, any type of thrower. So I think that was more just maintenance than it is anything that's really bothering him.
What have you seen from Britton Strange since the offseason program's kind of started?
Yeah, he's another one that just works his tail off every day. Like if you were to ask Campy, one of the guys that he really has a lot of appreciation for, specifically obviously as a defensive coordinator, is Brenton Strange. Just the way that he practices, when he does get his hands on you, when he is blocking, he's physical, he's violent. He has some explosive movements. He's got strong hands. So, I've been really pleased with Brenton. I do believe that he's ready to take a step, and you saw it last year, kind of taking some steps forward, and I've been really pleased with his effort so far.
Could you just talk about his growth from the time he got here to now?
Yeah, I think, both physically and mentally, there's been some growth. I saw some muscles coming out of his arms, and he's done a great job, and like I said, in the weight room with the conditioning. He's doing multiple meetings a day. I'd have to go back and watch the tape and see how he actually performed, but as you know, like on defense as a DB, usually if they're not calling your name, it's typically a good thing. So I'll have to go back and watch, but I think he's done a nice job in terms of communicating with the guys. He has a little bit of a benefit of knowing some of our plays in some ways, but I don't think that's made any changes. But maybe like formationally, he can anticipate maybe a little bit more, but he's also a little bit behind, obviously, from a terminology and defensive communication. I thought he did a good job, and he integrates himself so well with those guys no matter what. So I think he's had some progress for sure.
Been surprised with how easily it seems like he's able to jump back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit, because it's something you don't see every day, right? So for him, though, it just seems pretty like normal, right? And so I think what helps him kind of do things right a lot is that he's so well conditioned that from a mental fatigue standpoint doesn't seem to occur all that much out here, where he can kind of just run. You know, he's been in altitude for a few years now, and but he is in very good, physical shape when it comes to just being able to run all day. And that's something that ultimately, once your legs start to go, the mind starts to go, and you don't really see that all that often with him. He just keeps going. And so that's been exciting to see, and he's gonna have to lean into that as he goes here, and the reps start to go up, and he starts to play maybe offense and defense on the same day, which will occur in training camp. So, it's definitely a little bit surprising because you haven't seen it too much.
What are you looking for now in mandatory minicamp that you weren't necessarily looking for during OTAs?
Yeah, I think just a little bit uptick in the competition. Just trying to put them in some more game-like situations, whereas maybe the majority of OTAs, even though we do situational football every day, it's typically in a jog-through setting, a little bit slower paced. We've been mainly operating either off of a script or call-it periods of, first down, second down, third down, red zone, but went a little bit more specific today in the red zone with like 3rd and 10 on the 10, 3rd and 7 on the 7. Those gotta have it type situations, and then obviously ended with some 2-minute work as well. So trying to simulate a little bit more game-like competition, game-like situations, put them in some more pressure, let the mind go a little bit more as the fatigue starts to set in, and try to create as much sameness as we can to a game.
Was there a little bit more excitement today knowing your full team was out here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've had phenomenal attendance throughout the entire offseason, I'll say. I really appreciate that from our guys, the amount that they've been here voluntarily. And now, obviously, being in a mandatory time, it's been kind of normal, right? Like, we've had such good attendance that the majority of the guys have been here the entire time. And but you definitely felt it a little bit more yesterday in the team meeting, where you truly have everybody all in there together. You're going over the schedule of the week and the expectations. I just felt maybe a little bit more of a serious approach in some ways to these next few days, and it is a longer day. Like, we'll have these guys for the remainder of the day. We'll end with a walkthrough in the afternoon, which will simulate our cadence and rhythm for training camp. And that's what the goal is here for these 3 days. Get them into a rhythm and routine of kind of what we're going to do for training camp, and have everybody in here together.
Camper was the only guy no show. Is he excused? Is he okay?
Yeah, I think he's excused for sure. Absolutely, yeah. He just had a baby recently, so he's kind of working through some personal stuff. Yeah, he did.
I know you talked about the switch of being offensive minded, but flipping back to defense. Just what has it been like to see him this offseason?
Man, I've been impressed with Tyson. I thought, like you said today, made some really good competitive plays. He's getting more and more comfortable playing with his hands at the line of scrimmage, trusting his physicality. He does have long arms and good length, and obviously the speed and athleticism shows up. I thought he made some really good plays on the ball, and he kind of has all throughout OTAs, but I've been really pleased with his approach, the way that he's practiced, the way that he's taken coaching. I've been really pleased with Tyson so far.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
The GM Gladstone, he just told me, just be who I am, honestly. So that's all I am. That's all I'm trying to do is just be who I am. Get the guys the nuggets of knowledge that I have, and that's it. Really, just be myself out there and play good ball, and the rest will take care of itself.
What's it like trying to cover Travis Hunter on one day and then being in line with him getting reps the next?
No, he's very energetic, man. He's very shifty, and when he gets the ball, he can go. So I mean, he's a very special talent. It's just holding those things in, especially on the defensive end, just understanding what we like to do and the different techniques. But he has the aptitude to understand how to do it on offense and defense, and I believe he can get it done.
What have you seen just going up against Brian Thomas every day?
He's smooth. He's very smooth, man, for his size. He gets in and out of his breaks really quickly. I think he's one of the top guys that I've ever guarded, honestly. And I feel like he can get better. And he's a very young guy, and I feel like the sky's the limit for him.
Arian said you're coaching him up after every rep. What have you been telling him? What have you seen from him going into year 2?
Just like I said, he kind of raw, just like Travis is. Just trying to make sure he's technically sound and stuff, the things that Coach Milo was telling us to do. Just making sure that he gets those things, and he's definitely a special athlete. But just making sure he's technically sound out there every single time. But he's one of those guys that can play for sure.
How important is it to you to take on that kind of leadership role with some of the younger guys?
Very important, because when I was coming into the league, I never really had a guy that took me under his wing and told me exactly what to do, the do's and don'ts in the league. And I just want those guys to understand that I'm here for them. I'm in their corner. So just being a guy that I wanted when I was a rookie, just trying to get them any types of nuggets I have to make them a better football player. So that's really it, honestly.
We've seen some of your versatility inside and out, just lining up anywhere on the field. Just what is that like?
It's cool. I've been playing more so, inside here, but it's cool that Coach Milo give me some reps outside and getting adjusted to the defense and understanding how we want to play. But I feel like I can do both here, honestly. So I'm excited to see what they want me to do on the defensive end. But I'm here for the challenge. So I'm willing to do whatever and make this defense better.
What's Coach Liam like?
Very intense, yeah. So he coached at Michigan too. So it's a few ties that we have, and all the guys that played with him or played under him, they love him, and so do I. I love his energy and his passion for the game, and his attention to detail. Just the techniques and the different calls and stuff like that, and the love he has for his players. You can already tell that he loves us and he wants us to go out there and play really good football. And I feel like we're gonna do that.
Anything else? Thanks, Jourdan.
From the offense and the guys, I guess as they try and kind of get it under their belts, a lot of them been talking about just how many layers there is to learn.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of details that the guys are working at. We're getting down. The progress is one of those things that's incremental. It's day by day, and then you kind of look back after a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks and recognize how much you've really moved from that initial starting point. So it's hard to notice some of that progress on a day-to-day basis, because it is so incremental. It's 1%, 2%, 3% here and there. But when you add it up at the end, you turn around and you have something to be proud about.
What are you looking for now as opposed to OTAs in mandatory minicamp?
I think just the culmination of everything you've worked towards, really that level of mastery. Even if you're not at mastery, you're working towards that level of mastery that some of the guys have probably talked about, trying to get it automatic, just that play speed, that processing speed, the way they work, that thing speeding up when they're out on the field. I think you look at that, their level of execution and operation, the details that show up. It's a bunch of little things that go into it, but really it's everything that you're working towards. Everything matters out there. So there's not one thing in particular, but you would like to see all of that stuff to continue to evolve.
Are you starting to see the young guys kind of settle in now they have like about a dozen practices under their belt?
I think there are flashes here and there. I think it's probably on an individual basis, but it's good to see the guys. You guys saw some of the younger guys out there making plays today. It's good to see them get the opportunities and flash when their number's called.
Is it tough to get a feel where the running backs and the running game are at this time of year? No pads, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's always difficult. That's kind of the nature of the beast at this time of year, without the offensive line with pads on, defensive line without pads on. There's not true holes. You're not declaring blocks. So it's easy to second guess the guys or say this was a sack, this was a bad run, this was a good run, but that's kind of the nature of practicing during this time of the year.
I just talked to Brenton Strage. He said he knows he has to take more of a leadership role this season. What have you seen from him so far?
I think his work ethic, first and foremost, is hopefully a leadership attribute that the guys can model and see what he does on a day-to-day basis. But I think from a leadership standpoint or just from a player standpoint, you see a guy with a lot of potential to continue to grow, whether it's in the pass game, the run game, a guy with a lot of physical traits that can be that balanced tight end and do a lot of different things that this offense will ask him to do. I think the encouraging thing is the type of guy he is and the way he works. If he continues to work at it, you see the potential and you see the opportunity for growth, not just throughout this spring, but hopefully into training camp and beyond.
What's your scouting report on DV, Travis?
I know I like him a lot better on the other side of the ball. That's about the end of my scouting report. Yeah, just get him on the other side of the ball. I'll enjoy it much more on Sundays when he's not going against us.
How has Trevor kind of progressed maybe from the start of the offseason to now?
I think he's progressed in a lot of ways. I think first and foremost, learning the offense, like we talked about, it's a lot to learn. There are a lot of layers, a lot of details, and that can hinder a guy's play speed or processing speed. And I think as he's continued to work at that and study, you see the effect that it has physically in terms of playing fast, confidence and comfortability, taking drops, techniques, fundamentals, those types of things that show up on 7-on-7 or team periods that might be easier to see on the field. But I think the mental growth as well as that physical growth, whether it's the individual period, those fundamentals that we're working on, all in all has come together to a level of comfortability that'll be closer to what we get on game day, but I think he knows, we all know that it's still not to where ultimately he can be. So it's a work in progress, but I'm appreciative of the work he's put in thus far.
I've seen him and you kind of have little conversations in between reps. Just what is it like being able to kind of course correct in that moment rather than, obviously you're going to look at the film, but have those little moments on the field?
Yeah, there are little things here and there. Some are better done immediately after the play. Some are better done in the meeting room or at the end of practice or whenever the time is right. But he's been really good about taking coaching and progressing and learning from one rep to the next, taking each rep as its own. So I'm fortunate to have a guy who's willing to do that in order to improve on a rep-to-rep basis or play-to-play basis or even rack-to-rack in between periods. Well, I got that question last time. Thankfully, I actually have it planned now.
Does Liam know where you are and what the phone situation is going to be?
He does not. I don't know the phone situation exactly yet, so I'm still doing some logistics. I have flights booked and a bunch of stuff booked, but I don't have everything booked yet. But yeah, I'm excited for the summer.